Welcome everybody to Fearless Friday. I'm Tanya Eberhardt, the founder of BrandFace, where we teach real estate agents how to differentiate themselves.
And hi folks, I'm Michael Carr and I am her partner in BrandFace and the CEO of Michael Carr & Associates. So welcome to the show.
So we do these Fearless Friday episodes to teach real estate agents how to take the fear out of putting themselves out there. And so today we have quite a treat for you guys. We have Hernan Sias on with us today of Business Bros. So I'm going to give you a little bit of Hernan's background, and then we're going to dig into the questions to find out what frightens Hernan. All right. So Hernan Sias bought his first home at age 20, and he started his first business at age 21. He's actually been addicted to building businesses ever since. He currently has an insurance agency. He teaches high school seniors a course called Financial Algebra, which sounds scary in and of itself, and has a business with his brother James called Business Bros. When they launched that business, they actually decided to do a podcast called Business Bros as well. And although at the time they had no idea where that podcast would go, they decided to start it anyway. And now they have done over 230 podcast episodes. On that podcast, they tackle business topics and they talk with small business owners to hear about their business stories. Another cool thing about Hernan is that they also do this awesome fundraiser, and they're doing it this year, where they're collecting 365 pairs of shoes for homeless people in the San Diego area. And his brother James will actually come to pick up the shoes when you donate those on his Harley. So, Hernan, welcome to Fearless Friday.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on. Looking forward to sharing my experience and hopefully guiding people to let go of that fear. Just get out there and do your thing.
Absolutely. And we'll let Michael kick off your questions. We got quite a few for you today, Hernan.
Cool. Let's do it.
All right, let's do it. Hernan, tell us to start off with, what motivated you to start the Business Brothers podcast? The Business Bros podcast.
Yeah. So, prior to starting the podcast, I had a social media account because you're supposed to have one. If I wanted to be included in a family venture, something that was going to happen, a birthday party, a wedding or whatever, you had to have a Facebook because that's where the Evite was going to go through, right? And so, that was the extent of my exposure to the outside world. However, I would see a lot of people spending a lot of time on their phones. I would see people, doing a lot of different things. I have my kids in class that are constantly on whatever social media they're on, whether they're on Twitter, they were on Snapchat, they're on all these different things. And so I saw that attention was going in that direction, that if I wanted to reach out and get in front of them to grab their attention, I had to be on that sort of medium. So I started by offering my students like my Twitter account. And I was like, okay, we'll see how this works. And mind you, when I first started doing that at the time, there was a big stigma on you shouldn't associate your personal life with the students because, you could put something out there that's going to say something wrong and you're going to get in trouble and you might lose your job and all this different stuff. But over time, you started to see those lines kind of blur. Now it's like you should be talking to the kids where they're interested, right? This is where you're going to reach out to them. This is where you're actually going to make a connection. So, that's where it actually started, was it kind of in the education space. And then we with our business, we wanted to try to reach out to more people. We wanted to get more insurance clients. How do we get more insurance clients? How do we recruit more agents? And it always kept coming back to, you should use social media. You should use social media. And in my mind, I grew up during a time where, you go outside, you play outside till the lights go on. There was no internet when I was a kid. I had a pager in high school. You put a quarter in the machine and you call whoever, wherever the phone was that was calling you from that pager. So it was a different world for me. I saw social media and I saw that sort of space as where you play, not where you do business. And so, once I started to make the connection between the two, I decided, okay, well, how am I gonna approach this? I tried video actually at first. So we started the Business Bros podcast after I tried to do some video stuff, and I realized, holy crap, editing video takes so long and I'm not very good at it. What can I do that I'm not dependent on somebody holding a camera and looking at me? So we thought, okay, well, let's try this podcast thing. Cause I knew I could convince my brother to start. I didn't know I could convince him to stay. Right. That's always the hard part. So I said, all right, dude, we're going to do this podcast thing. We're going to do it every day. And we're just going to talk about this normal stuff we talk about anyways. When we sit down and we talk about how our business is going, what our sales progress is, what stuff are we working on for our agents so that they can get more exposure? Like, what are the things that we talk about on a daily basis? And we're going to talk about it and record it, and then we could share it. And the initial thought was, this is a good way to create some training stuff for our people, right? And so we started it. We started with our story just to kind of work the kinks out. And then we started with these specific topics. And we do these types of trainings anyways on a weekly basis in our insurance company. So every day we have a training for our agents to have access. Sometimes it's a Q&A. Sometimes we get a specific carrier to come in and talk about a product. Sometimes it's a motivational day, whatever it is, but it's something every day. And I'm sure if you have any teams that you do that with your team to ensure that they're progressively working forward. So we did this podcast thing, and so we initially started that way, but we didn't know where it was going to go. And, we did maybe 80, 90 episodes because we do these every day, Monday through Friday, and nobody listened. We had like 0 listeners except for mom, and, maybe every once in a while somebody would hop on because they Googled something that, whoops, that wasn't the one I was looking for. That's what I used to think anyways. And so, my 8-year-old basically said, hey, Dad, if you want people to listen to your podcast, you need to get influencers on your show. And I was like, oh, okay. First of all, my 8-year-old just said a word with more than, 2 syllables in it. And, and I was impressed. I was like, okay, well, let's look at these influencers things. So I reached out to a couple realtors that I knew, and I was like, hey, I got this podcast. You guys want to be on the show? And surprisingly, people said yes. They actually wanted to be on the show. And even people to this day that I reach out to and I say, hey, you know what, you're doing a great job out there. I would really like to hear your story. They say yes with a hesitation. Like, they don't know what to say. They always ask me things like, can you send me a list of questions up front? Or what specific topics are we going to be talking about? And I always tell them the same thing. I'm like, I want to know your story. I want to know what you went through. What were you doing before real estate? What did you do when you first got started? What were your biggest struggles? Because those are the things that most people are struggling with themselves, but they think they're the only one going through that problem. They think that they're the only one who is a single parent trying to start a business, or they think they're the only one that just moved into an area and is trying to become a realtor when they have no sphere of influence. They think they're the only one who struggles with a calendar on a daily basis. Everybody thinks their problem is the only type of problem that they'll ever experience. And so how do I overcome it? And so I felt like if I can share people's stories and they can tell me what they did, then that's just a little testament as to, look, there's other people out there that are going through exactly what you're going through. This is how they overcame it. And that's where the podcast started to take off. Now at about episode 100 or so, we started adding video to it, because somebody that we met on the podcast said you should use Sling Studio. Now we added video. Everybody comes on, they're like, you should get this particular type of camera. You should try this particular angle. All these different things to improve my business came from other people that I've met. And that's one of those things that I try to get across to all my agents, to all the real estate agents, is you have to get in front of people and tell them what it is you do. And you do that by listening to their story, right? You're always going to try to figure out what the client's needs are, and then your product or service will meet that need. But how do you do that? You usually go in and you talk about what you do awesome. You never actually sit down and listen to what the client needs or what the client likes or what the client is struggling with. You're there to solve their problem. And if you can learn to do that, you're going to benefit over time. You're going to get better because they're going to show you something that you maybe didn't see, maybe you didn't understand, but it does take that little step to go, hey, how's it going? My name is... what's your name?
I love that. I love that. And what we're all about is helping people develop that story in a very concise way so that it highlights what sets them apart from everybody else in their industry. And I'm going to go off beat here just for a minute and then come back to the Fearless Friday theme. But as part of your own story, we're curious as to where the 365 pairs of shoes idea came from.
Yeah, sure. It actually comes from my parents. So my mom is, everybody loves to say their mom's awesome, and my mom is awesome. But my parents are like the Brady Bunch parents. They don't drink, they don't smoke, they don't curse, they go to church all the time. My mom, since I can remember, has always been out helping people. She was first responder with the American Red Cross. She worked for WIC. She runs the food bank at the church. Like, she is all about everybody else. My parents is, one of those things that's strange is my parents live in a small little like 1-bedroom studio because they don't want anything else. They just want a place to sleep. And then after that, they give everything back. And so we were kind of raised in that sense. And my dad has just been like 100% whatever my mom wants to do, he supports her. So when it comes time for the food bank, and the food bank needs to pick up boxes, there's my dad going to go pick up boxes, or they need to deliver things. There's my dad, like 100% backs up my mom. My dad has this personal integrity creed, and it's like a page long. I can send it to you guys. It's really cool. And it's talking about essentially the things that you do when nobody's looking, right? When you're on a path, and do you do the right thing when nobody's looking? Do you do the right thing because it's the right thing to do, not because somebody tells you it's the right thing to do? And so these are the two types of role models that we've had, telling us to do the right thing because it's the right thing, to always be of service to other people, to help other people. And so, sitting down with my dad's, one of the proudest people. He likes to drive Uber so he can talk to people about our podcast. So it's playing in the background. Like, that's my dad, right?
That's great.
And so, my dad is one of those things where he has a real, a big heart for homeless people. Like, he wants to know their stories and how they, what he can do to help. And he understands that there's drug addictions there. He understands that there's mental issues there. But sometimes it's just something as easy as giving them a pair of shoes. And so, I've never really been that far as trying to help. I want to help people grow their businesses. James, on the other hand, he would like to eventually, when he's done working, he wants to go and help like third world countries build like schools and clean water source. Like, that's his giving back. My giving back is to help you become successful. And so together we kind of said, okay, well, what are we going to do? And we agreed that the easiest thing to do for us is to help people right here in our own city. If you go in downtown San Diego, there are literally tent cities of homeless people. And, and there's times where we'll be in downtown area and you see people walking down the street and their shoes are thrashed, or they don't have shoes. And something as simple as putting, giving somebody something to walk on so that their feet don't burn or so that their toes don't freeze off, taking care of those feet is something that could be something long-term. I've had, a number of people in my family that have diabetes, and when one toe gets a cut or something happens to that one little toe, it can infect the rest of the foot. And before you know it, they're losing limbs, and, you're already in a hard situation. If this is one little thing that can help out to maybe, change that little piece of life, maybe that little gesture changes their outlook in life. I don't know. But at the very least, they have shoes.
What a beautiful thought process.
Well, like I said, I can't give credit to anybody but my parents. Like, that's what they put in us. We can't, it's you always can only deal with the cards you're dealt in life, right? And fortunately for us, we weren't dealt in a situation where we've ever had a lot of money as a kid. Matter of fact, we had a time when we were homeless for a while because my parents wanted us to get out of LA. I was born in LA. So they wanted us to get out of LA because they thought the gangs were bad in LA. They didn't know that gangs were everywhere at that time, but they got us out of LA. And when we came to San Diego, like, my dad's company the company he worked for went under, and rather than restarting our situation back in LA, they decided to ship us back to LA with family for a while. And they started their life here in San Diego. So, there was that, few months period where we lived with family. We didn't have a home, but it didn't matter. Regardless, we were always still giving. My mom was still organizing, clothes that would go to TJ, and we would, give away clothes to the homeless, like all those different things. To see that, like, to actually physically, if you guys have ever gone to the border and, over here in San Diego, you cross the border, you go into Mexico, it's night and day. Like the world is completely different. You think you have it, struggle, first world problems here with your, latte coffees and all that. You go across the border and you have 4 or 5-year-old kids with no shoes walking up and down the border selling gum. Like this is their life, that they're just trying to get by to get by. And, when you have that sort of perspective, all of a sudden the little things in our life, they're minuscule. You can throw them out the window. It doesn't really matter what people say, what people think. Like your life is completely different. For us, I mean, it's fortunately unfortunate that you can literally see that with a 5-minute drive and kind of bring you back to perspective.
Well, but that's a fantastic thought process, though. Obviously, it fits with what way Tanya and I think too, and I think that comes from you. It could just, you can tell about people what type of people they are, and that you show that very well. Is what I'm trying to say. Like you wouldn't even have to explain that, and I think that people listen to you talk and how you've prepared your business and do your business and conduct your business, that you have that acumen. It's really good. That's awesome.
Thank you.
So that would segue into our next question, because it's almost like when you can approach life with that kind of thought process, life should be fearless, completely fearless, right? Because like you said, you can deal with any cards that you've been dealt. And you know how to do that. You know how to give back in any situation. You've been raised in that. But I still got to ask the question, name something, one type of fear that you've had to overcome. It can be personal or it can be professional. It doesn't matter. And how did you do it? Something that you were really afraid of, and then it could be in the past or.
It's my greatest strength and yet my greatest weakness. My dad always told me that my greatest strength and greatest weakness was my pride. Right. It was the one thing that made me amazing. Right. I had a very great pride in the things I did, the things I accomplished, everything from being a little kid to riding a bike or winning a game when I was pitching or throwing a guy out at second base. I was very proud. I had a lot of pride for those things. But my pride is also the one thing that stopped me from doing things. I would be afraid of looking bad or making a mistake or publicly being ridiculed for something that, I said or did or didn't live up to. So to me, that was probably the biggest thing I'm scared of. And even today, the biggest thing I'm scared of is letting someone down. With my kids, like they know that when dad makes a promise, he keeps it. And I wanted to ingrain that in them since they were little, because it didn't matter what it was. The other day they asked me, they wanted to go to the store, Walmart of all places, of course. Right. And so, I know I had a busy calendar. I was like, look, at this time, we'll go at, 4:00 after I finish my podcast, we'll go at 5. And so when they hear dad say, this is what we're going to do, I come hell or high water, I'm going to make it happen, because I want them to understand that when I say something, it's valuable. It means something. And I hope that by them seeing me do that they too understand that when they say they're going to do something, it holds weight. And it's not just between daddy and the kids. It's between them and wherever else. If you go out in the real world and you say you're going to do something, you better do it. You better stick to your guns, because if you don't do it, ultimately it doesn't really hurt anybody other than your own personal brand. Now you haven't held up your end of the bargain. You said you were going to do something. You didn't do it. Less likely that I'm going to trust you the next time you're going to say you're going to do something. Sure. So my biggest thing is letting people down. I'm scared to let people down. I genuinely, I will tell you, I would love to do that, but I can't commit to it. I will try my best to get there, but I can't honestly, I don't know if I have the time in the day to do that. Or the other side, yes, this is the time that we're going to do that. I'm going to stick it in my calendar. Now it's a thing. It's happening. We're going to make it happen.
Mm-hmm. Well, I like that. That's a good spin there. That's a good spin. Being fearful of a positive thing, right?
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah. It might be the best answer we've had yet.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Seriously.
Afraid of letting people down.
Because yeah, it's heartfelt. It's the truth. And your greatest, and for many of us, our greatest strength is also our greatest weakness. But that is a fantastic answer. So thinking back throughout times of your life that you were afraid, whether it had to do with pride or anything else as you prepare for the path that you're on today, was there any one experience or any one person that taught you to let go of fear?
Ooh, that's a good one. I don't know if I've had a person. I'll give you the most recent example. I when I was a kid, I didn't mind if people laughed with me. I hated it when people laughed at me. Right? There was a big difference. Like, you can say things to me that are funny and you're kind of making fun of me and it's cool you're laughing with me. But if you're laughing at me, it's a whole different ballgame. That's the whole pride issue, right? Most recently, I've released my second parody, and it's literally, I'm a goofball. Like, I do some weird stuff. So the first parody we did for the song that's pretty hot right now. It's the Old Town Road, and so I rewrote the lyrics and I did a music video for it. And then most recently, I launched it 2 days ago. I redid Run DMC's "It's Tricky." And I rewrote the lyrics. So it's tricky to be a teacher, podcaster, and realtor. Right. And so it's out there and it's a goofy video. Right. And so that was one of those experiences where, okay, I'm going to look like an ass. I'm definitely going to look like an idiot here. Am I comfortable, first of all, when the camera comes on, can I do that? Right. Can I actually be that character that I want to be? And then second is, now it's recorded. Can I actually put it out there for people to laugh at me? Right. And so that was one of those things to me that most recently I was like, I don't know if I could do that. And even as I'm recording and I'm doing it and I come back at the end of the day and I talk to my wife, I'm like, I don't know if I could put that out there. I'm genuinely scared of what people are going to say. And then I kind of think back and I'm like, does it really matter? You know what I mean? Like, does it really matter what people say? It's going to be a fad like anything else. They might say something for a few minutes and then they're going to forget they even saw it. Right. And that's kind of one of those revelations that I've had in posting things on social media. And it came with practice. My favorite thing to promote to people is to use Instagram stories, for example, or Facebook stories, because you can look like an idiot for a day and then it'll disappear. And as you get more comfortable with yourself, because that's really what it comes down to. We ourselves are taking on what we think people actually care about, not realizing that most of them don't care about anything you do. They're all just like you. They care about themselves. They care about what they're thinking, and they're projecting their own fears out into the world. And so use those Instagram stories, get over yourself, do some goofy stuff. It doesn't matter because it's junk mail. It's going to disappear in 24 hours anyways. And it's like it never happened, but you yourself are getting stronger with every piece of content that you put out there. You're getting more comfortable with yourself. You're getting more comfortable with what you're going to say, how you're going to say it, what you're willing to do. And then before you know it, you're doing music parodies and looking like an idiot, but it's fun, right?
It helps you become brave.
It does help you become brave.
For sure.
You're scared of yourself, really, is what it comes down to. Your biggest fear is what you think other people think. It's not what other people actually think. And if you've gotten to the point where you're getting negative comments in your feed with the stuff you're doing and the stuff you're saying, you're doing something right. you're grabbing attention. So you're actually looking forward to the day that you get negative comments, because it means you did it correctly. You grabbed enough attention where people are going to spend that time commenting. And then it's a whole different mindset. Then it's a matter of, well, you got to really look back and think, okay, well, something's going on with that person in their life where they took the time to consume your content and then say something negative, right? So you kind of you have to have like an empathetic look or point of view on that. You got to just start looking back and saying, okay, well, I could come back and be aggressive and start a big, Facebook fight, or I can, figure out, hey, I'm sorry you felt that way. I hope everything is good with you. Hopefully, if there's anything you need or anything you'd like to talk about, please reach out to me. Right? It's totally different. I tell my kids, you want to really stop somebody from picking on you, be super nice to them. Admit that, you know what, you're right. That is me. That is me. Nobody can argue with you when you're agreeing with them. And so that's one, but again, it takes you understanding that maybe that's not really you, but you're trying to reach out to this person. So you know what? Yes. Yeah. I was goofy. I was an idiot. I totally agree with you. What do you think I can do better? And people are dumbfounded. You're not going to have an answer for you because you totally agreed with them.
Yeah. Yeah. My son says, and when he's driving, instead of giving people the finger, he gives them the thumbs up. And he said it makes him so angry, much more angry than it does to give him the finger, because they want you, like they're looking for a fight, right?
Yeah.
Cutting you off and honking their horn. They're looking for a fight. And all of a sudden you're like, it just makes him so mad. It's like, I don't know if you're doing the right thing with that son or not, but I'm glad you're not giving him the finger.
Yeah. You don't want to, you're sending good vibes, right? So the other person's either going to be like, or like, I always go, oh, sorry. And then, that's it. Like, what are you going to do? Like, I made a mistake. I apologized. You can continue to be mad, but I'm acknowledging that I made the mistake. Right. Acknowledge your faults.
You can't get any better than that.
Yeah.
You can't.
I use the phrase, I know, right? A lot. Like if somebody,
I know, right?
I know, right? They don't know how to answer it. They really don't. But it's the same thing you're saying. Like if they confront you, I learned a long time ago, it's rarely about you. Like rarely. And if it is, you already know it in your heart, and you know you owe them an apology, right? But if somebody blindsides you with an attack, that you haven't done anything to them, that's them, but it is hard to do in the moment, and it's sort of a training thing. But I love that answer. I got to say, Tanya says all the time that one of her favorite is, I think, was it Dr. Phil, and he says, your opinion of me is none of my business. It's true. Because it's not. And I love your answer right there. That's a fantastic answer.
Well, and here's the irony in that, though. Here's the irony. I don't care what people say, and yet I absolutely care what people say. Like, I actually do genuinely care. Like, I look and I want to read the comments, and I want to understand what's going on. I get feedback from stuff like, you should try this, or you should have wrote this, or I genuinely care. And if I did piss somebody off, I'm going to reach out to that person and be like, I'm sorry I did that. What's going on? I don't have time to deal with what feelings they're projecting, but I do care about their opinions, right? I do actually care. So it's one of those weird dichotomies. Like, I don't care, but I do care,
Well, because you're so right about that. Like in my office, we have what's called the Ernie principle, and the Ernie principle came from years ago. Tanya's laughing at me because I had this client, and like he was horrific. Like he was the world's biggest nightmare. Right? He was constantly on us. We never did anything right. He tried to beat us out of every commission. He never did, but he tried on every one of them, constantly put down everything. But some of those complaints were right, and like we had a problem with the website, and he found it out of all people. And I'm like, how could this guy find this? And of course it's them blasting us and, emails, and y'all run I can't believe the organization y'all run, but our organization is tighter because of people like that. So now when people come to me and they say, hey, so-and-so, they just give us this blast, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, let's find out what's going on, and we interview everybody to make sure. And and then we say, no, that's an Ernie principle. Fix it right now. He's right. Because some of those critics can really, like you said, they can hone those edges and get past it. And you sort of have to weigh out whether or not it's, something that had to do with you or didn't have to do with you. But
you can't dwell on it, but by the same token, you can learn from it.
You can learn from it. Absolutely.
You can learn from it, and you can also turn it into a teachable moment. And I'll give you just a little story here. It was last week. In some of our advertising and some offers that we put out there, we give people the opportunity to schedule a free strategy session with us. Just let's talk about your challenges and your goals, and let's see if what we do is a fit for you. And if so, we'll take it to a second call, and that second call is usually with me. And so this lady schedules a call, and she gets on the phone with one of our associates, and she was so incredibly rude to her because she thought she was going to get on the phone with me right away, right? And I wish I could take all those calls, initial calls, but the schedule just doesn't allow. And so we want to gather the information first, make sure that, hey, yeah, this could be a great fit. And then I take every one of those, after that. But on the initial one, I just don't have the time to do that a lot. And so she was so extremely rude to our associate. And then when our associate followed up with her and said, look, I don't think you're a fit for the second call, she got irate and wanted to know why. Then she emailed me directly and wanted to know why she was not a fit for the second call. So at that moment, there was, sometimes it's better just to be brutally honest in a very nice diplomatic way. And it was a teachable moment for me, for her, and for our team members, because I wrote her back in a very nice way. I said, look, we have built a culture of agents here that are respectful to us and to one another in the program, and that's just what we've built. And I said, frankly, you were inconsiderate to our associate, not allowing her to finish her sentences, saying very unkind things to her, and that's just not the culture we promote. And for that reason, I did not feel it was a fit. It was entirely my call. And strangely enough, I mean, what would you think her response would be back to that, Hernan?
Well, she would either be upset or realize, like, you know what, I was having a bad day that day. I probably shouldn't have went off.
Well, she never apologized. She said, thank you for explaining. I understand. That was it. And, but I think what that did was it was very respectful, the response back to her, albeit very honest. And it allowed our teammates to see that we're not going to allow people to treat our family like that, and that's just like you teach people how to treat you, and I, granted, she might have been having a really bad day, which is why the response back to her was honest, but professional and respectful at the same time. And I even ended it with, hey, if I've misunderstood anything, please let me know. I'll be happy to discuss. There was no misunderstanding. There was
that's a skill in and of itself, by the way. Being able to give somebody bad news is not something that you can come by really easily. I was fortunate that, when my very first business went down, it went and I was learning a lot of things. I mean, I went broke at about 24, 25 years old, closing this down. And when I was going broke, I realized, oh snap, look, I have to pay property taxes. Self-employment taxes. I have to pay employee taxes. I have to pay income tax. I didn't know any of that stuff. I just had this business that was making money. I thought it was awesome. Right. The first thing I did was enroll in tax school because I wanted to know who Uncle Sam was and why was he taking all my money. Right. And so, I ended up working for H&R Block for a few years to learn learn this whole tax thing. And the greatest thing I learned was, at the beginning of the year, I give everybody great news. Here's your refund. You're making all this, getting all this money back. And then the second peak comes, and these are the people who come in at the end of March, first 2 weeks of April. And these are all bad news. These are like, well, we were able to save you this much money, but ultimately this is your tax bill for the year. And giving people bad news, like that to me was one of the greatest lessons that I could have learned, because there's a skill to giving people bad news. There's a way that you say, by the way, $10,000 is what you owe the IRS this year. And, it's kind of like, it's not your fault. You feel like it's your fault. You feel like you did something wrong, but it's just right. Their reality. It's something that you're hired to help them minimize that burden, but they do have that burden. You know what I mean? Your job was to write that letter and let her know that, I'm sorry, you're not a good fit. And you have a skill set now to be able to give people bad news. In real estate, sometimes that happens. By the way, your offer, it didn't get accepted. They went with another offer, and you could easily say, well, your offer sucked. You didn't, I told you should have went with a higher offer. I warned you ahead of time. You could go that route, or you can come around and say, this is a learning opportunity right here. We had multiple offers. This is where they ended up accepting somewhere about here. For the next one, let's do X, Y, and Z, right? And that way we can ensure that we get to where we want to go. So, giving someone bad news is a great skill to learn, but people get really uncomfortable. You talk about fears. That's one of those things where they are afraid to give somebody bad news. And so they beat around the bush, and then they look sleazy because they never actually told the client what the client needed to know.
Hey, and that'll lead us into another question here. Who is one of your top or two mentors? Professionally or personally, it doesn't matter.
So I'm a big fan of books. So one of my very first mentors was Robert Kiyosaki. So one of the very first books I picked up and read ever, because I went through high school and I was a good student. I had straight A's in high school pretty much, but I got through high school without reading a single book. I just realized early on that if I listen to the teacher, they're going to tell me what's going to be on the test, and then I'm good to go. I do the practice work and I'm set. And I always joke around. I say the first book I ever read was Of Mice and Men because we read it out loud in class.
No choice.
No choice. But Rich Dad Poor Dad was one of the first books that I picked up and read, on because I wanted to learn, and it opened up my eyes to a different world that was out there. And so he's one of my first primary mentors. Right now, one of my biggest mentors is Gary Vee, because I love the way that he is basically telling you, go out and put content. Like, he's saying a lot of the things, probably a little more vulgar than I would say them, but a lot of the same things that I'm thinking in my head. Like, I've been saying it for a while. I've been telling people these sorts of things for a while. The biggest thing for me is go out there and take action. Everybody has an idea. Everybody has a concept in their head. I got the next $1 million idea that I'm thinking of, but very few people will take the action to get there because they're afraid they're going to fail, not understanding that, yes, you will fail. And that's kind of the point. You will fall down. You just get back up and keep going, but you're taking action and you're going to get there. If you don't take action, then you're just like 98% of everybody else who thinks about it, but never actually does it, and so those are the two. My very first would be Robert Kiyosaki. My current one would be Gary Vee.
And which leads us to kind of a follow-up question on that is there's going to be a lot of not only real estate agents, but business owners and entrepreneurs that'll be watching this who do have some fears about putting themselves out there to do a lot of the things that you've done. What one piece of advice would you give to them?
Get out of your own way. You are your worst enemy. You are the person who's stopping you from doing anything else. And the biggest thing you're going to see is if you really, really think about it, listen to the words that you're telling yourself, that you're always going to blame somebody else or something that you are using as a crutch to stop you from whatever it is you want to do. But ultimately it's your choice. Your life, like you're choosing to do whatever it is you want to do, whether you're doing it directly or indirectly, you are making the choice. You chose to hit the snooze button or you chose to get up. You chose to eat that fast food or you chose to eat the healthy food. You chose the clothes you were going to wear and what you're going to do today. You chose to go to the job that you're going to go to. You're choosing to clock in. You've agreed to that wage and value that you've done. You have done all these things. There's always a circumstance around everything, and life will always have circumstances, but you have a choice. You have a choice to take a risk. You have a choice to not take a risk. One of the coolest analogies I like to use is the maximum security prison, right? If you're in maximum security prison, you get told when to wake up, you get told how to dress, you get told when to shower, when to use the bathroom, when to go outside, right? But you get meals every day, right? You have a roof over your head. And that's the analogy that I use with people who are stuck in a 9-to-5 that they hate, right? They're giving up their freedom for that maximum security paycheck. They're told when to clock in, when to clock out, what to do. And that to me is why when you wake up in the morning, you hit the snooze button, because you're literally telling your life that you would rather be unconscious for it than conscious for it. Because if you talk to people who do what they love, they don't almost any of them don't really have an alarm clock. They wake up because they can't wait to wake up, because they want to see the next day, because they want to do what they're doing on a daily basis. So I'm moving away from words like retirement because it has such a, like, I know that there's people that work their butts off in a job that they hate, finally have the money to retire, which means they're barely getting by, and then they die because they didn't find something passionate to keep going. So my thing right now, my biggest push is find something that makes you happy and start to build a side hustle around that thing that makes you happy. And when that thing that makes you happy has enough revenue coming in that you don't have to do your 9-to-5 job, you are technically retired, because chances are you're going to be 92 years old and you're going to be doing that thing because you love to do it. You would have been doing it anyways, but you found a way to make money at it. And so it's not really retirement. It's just finding something to do that you love to do every single day. So when the sun comes up, you wake up because you want to, not because your alarm clock's telling you to.
I love it. I love it. That is so good. What's the best way to reach you and to get some more of this insight?
Absolutely. So if you guys want to reach out to me, I'll give you my cell phone number so you can always send me a text. I love talking to people. So 619-884 4915. And if you want to get a hold of us in any which way, you can find me on social media at Business Bros Pod, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, whatever. Reach me, send me a friend request, send me a follow, send me a DM. One of my favorite things to do right now is to video DM you. So if you send me a DM, I will video DM you back. You'll see my face, you'll hear my voice, and it's practice. And so I encourage anybody else, by the way, if you're not doing that on Instagram or Facebook, you can hit the little camera button, you hit you hold the little button there, and you talk to somebody the same way you would do in person. You do it online, and it's one of the greatest prospecting tools. And it'll also get you in motion of getting in front of the camera, practicing what you're going to say. And if you don't like it, you just, hit cancel and try it again. You can try it 4 or 5 times before you hit send. You don't have to do it the first time, but you'll get better and better and better at it. And you realize that we as humans connect with other human beings. We don't connect well with robots. We don't like those guys. Like we're afraid of them. You ever watch Terminator? We don't want to connect with robots. We want to connect with people, and people are authentic. We trip, we fall, we make mistakes, we stutter. So it's okay if you do those types of things.
What great insight and advice today, Hernan. You're going to have to come back sometime.
Anytime. Reach out to me. I'm good. We'll do webinars or trainings or whatever you want to do.
There you go. Well, I think you helped a lot of people today be a little bit more fearless, or maybe a lot more fearless. So thank you so much for coming on with us.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
You bet. And I'm going to remind you guys to subscribe to Hernan's YouTube channel. It's Business Bros. Subscribe to his YouTube channel. Subscribe to ours. It's at BrandFace Star. And yours is at Business Bros, right?
Business Bros Pod. Yep.
You got it. Okay. Subscribe to our YouTube channels to get more great content like this. And I'm going to let Michael do our signature sound off here for Fearless Friday.
Yes, folks, Fearless Friday is all about removing the fear and getting yourself out there. And so what I always like to tell everybody is prosperity favors the bold, so be bold, especially with your marketing, folks.
All right, guys. We'll see you next time on Fearless Friday.
Bye, guys. Thanks a lot.